Alright, critique time. Today for some art from Epic Battle Fantasy 5. So let's see here. What's gonna be the enemy of today? We have already done it for the Telperion, the Laurelin, and I think all the previous bosses so far. We did it for the Mutant Chomper that one time. And today, I believe we're gonna, might as well, critique the boss that we have faced today, which is the ROBO. Another arcade boss for us to critique. Also, we have critiqued a few other ones. So let us just go through the disclaimers as always. I'm gonna talk more about the visuals here. But I'm not gonna dive too deep into game design. No, just some. And also this critique is gonna follow Feldman's method, which is about 4 steps in order: description, analysis, interpretation, and judgment. On the description, I'll describe what I see. On the analysis, I'll get into the elements of art. On the interpretation, I will interpret the creative vision behind the art. And on the... what was it, the last one? Judgment. And on the judgment, I'm gonna look at the principles of art, and at the end of it, call this a successful or unsuccessful art. I'm gonna look into the principles and compare those to the creative vision. And then I'm gonna call this successful or unsuccessful. So let us begin. First things first, description. What do I see? So, it's something like 8-bit, right? We can make out the pixels and stuff. It's got some sort of a skull in it and somewhat... I wonder if I should say like some magnets and stuff. I kind of know they're magnets, but just from the appearance of it, I don't know. It is this kind of weird gray monster, right? Again, has some sort of skull-like thing. It's like some weird hands, I would say. And what else? Some tiny teeth, some tiny feet, and yeah, I guess that's mostly it. I guess that's it for the description, right? Because there's not too much to talk about here. There's not too much area, let's say, of to look into. So let's get into the analysis. Elements of art. I'm gonna be considering 8 for this critique, which will be points, lines, shapes, forms, texture, space, texture, color, and value. They don't need to follow in order, but I have one to help myself remember. And so I like to begin with points usually. 4 points. So we're getting to pixel art here, right? So we kinda having to fall into the situation where are these pixels, should we consider these pixels as points? Because they're, kind of squares in practice. So, I'm gonna be considering those as squares, shapes, rather than points. Also, because even if it's pixel art, there is pixel art with higher resolutions and smaller resolutions. Smaller resolutions, like this one, just mean that there are like... the way I see it, at least, instead of points, there are gonna be squares. If this was a higher resolution pixel art, then we could start talking about points. But anyway, yeah. So I will say that there are no points here, to me. Only shapes. I think. Because that's what I did for some other pixel art that I critiqued. So I would like to maintain consistency through my critiques whenever I can. Although also being able to realize my mistakes and stuff like that. I don't know, this is complicated as always. let's just move with this. Move on with this. Lines. What about lines? So for lines here, similar argument I would say. Since this is pixel art, it's mostly shapes, because the would-be lines are very thick, I guess. Perhaps we could say that there are some here on this middle part, if we would consider some very thick lines. But I don't know. If we would see those as lines, they would be short, very thick lines, straight lines, and with regular thickness to them, regular in their thickness and color, very regular properties. Okay, so what about the next? I think that's it. But but again, I just don't think there is any. I think it's more about shapes. So let's talk about shapes then, since I'm going down that route. So for shapes, naturally there's a bunch of squares, as I said. We have also this kind of the shape of a skull on this part here. We have this like claw-like shapes for these hands, the hands of this thing. Other than that, some very thin, minute shapes for what I'm thinking are the feet of this creature, the ROBO. And what else? As I said before, a bunch of small squares and small rectangles for the minute details of it. What else? I guess that's mostly it for shapes. There's the skull, there is the... and there is some like... there is the rectangular-like form here for this part, as I said, but I also, if there is some sort of arm in there, that also I see somewhat of a rectangular shape there also. What else? I don't know, let's move on to forms now. Those would be shapes. When it comes to forms, let's see. Just a reminder, shapes are about something that's 2D, forms are something that's always 3D. So for forms, it's mostly like some sort of blocky form, right, as I see it here. It's what's being conveyed to me. With some, much like we have like some thing-like shapes, as I see conveyed, I see some kind of thing-like forms for the feet. Again, some claw-like. There was some claw-like forms for the shapes for the hands, and I see something like that for the forms also. It is kind of a half donut, let's say, in their forms. What else? I think that's mostly it. Okay. Now what about space? On space, things are so packed right here, right? But I do see some uses of space. Some tight use of space in between the two parts of the claw. Some small one on the back of the ROBO, some sort of curvature, I guess. Some tight ones also, some tight use of space also between the small feet of the ROBO, and I would say that's mostly it. The rest is kind of hard for me to make out, so yeah, that's it. And around the ROBO, you know, the rest is just background, expansive, let's say. So now let's move on to textures. So this part here, I mentioned it for shapes, right? A bunch of squares, but also I think it could also be described as shapes. It looks, sorry, texture, not shapes. Shapes, yeah, shapes, and I think maybe also texture. It could kind of be communicating a bit some sort of a, I don't know if a metallic texture, if it would be like spots of light reflecting, or maybe that's like a bunch of screws or something. Since it has such low resolution, it's pretty hard to say for sure. It's really up for interpretation, I would say. Other than that, for textures, I don't even think I see any in general, really. Maybe we could say that we have like a serrated texture on this part of the scope. So it's not like the jaw. There's a specific name for this. In Portuguese, it would be mandíbula. It would be the maxillar. I don't know. Anyway, this upper part here of the skull. So what else? That's it for texture. So and no, I think that's it. I was going to think on the feet, but I don't think that there is anything very noticeable on the feet. So serrated things on the jaws, and maybe some sort of screws, slight sublevations, but very up for interpretation, visual interpretation here. Space textures. What about color? Color is easy, right? Just basically gray, a number of gray, and for some reason yesterday there was also a lot of the gray on the mounter fronting focus shoe. There's also a lot of gray here today. Okay, then but whatever. And also I think this is a light shade of gray on the face. I was thinking now if that's a gray or a white. I'm going to say it's a very light shade of gray. So 2 different shades of gray for most parts of the body of the Robo. And we have a specific shade of red for the eyes, the details on the serrated teeth, and the claws. And what else? I also missed some details here. Since we're still in the analysis, I'm gonna add this real quick to the forms. We have some like very small ears on the Robo. I was missing that, wasn't mentioning it, but yeah, some tiny ears. That's added for the farms. But anyway, for colors, yeah, that's what I said. So shades of gray and red for certain details. And that's it. Very limited use of color. And finally, for the value. Well, the value. So light and darkness. Very hard for me to see any effect of light and darkness here on the Robo. Again, as I said, one possibility is that this back part is like spots where the light's kind of reflecting, shining on it. But I don't know if that makes sense actually, now that I think a little bit about that. I don't know, the way the light's being reflected, like you can see this sort of spots. That doesn't make too much sense to me. I don't know. I just don't think I see much use of value. We could perhaps make an argument that the lighter shades of gray are a reflection of our communicating value here, light and darkness. But it's kind of hard to me still to say that. I still believe it's just different shades of gray. At least that's how I see this. And yeah, and so I guess I'll change my mind about calling these dots points as light being reflected, because it would be pretty weird, I would say, for light to be reflected in this way. Or maybe not that much, but still not. Whatever. Let's keep it as textures, as I said, and I'm gonna in my analysis there is no use of light here, or shadows value. So that was it for the analysis. Let's get into the interpretation of the creative visual. So now we can get into the more stuff that we already know and think about and say stuff like, oh, so these hand things, they look like they are probably magnets, right? Because of how it works in game, it does kind of extends from the robo and it does some sort of static noise when the robo attacks with it and stuff. What else? And we can look at stuff like the description, the name, robo, the description. With 128 megabytes of RAM, this machine is incredibly accurate and always lands critical hits, do not engage. So, yeah, stuff. And when we think about game design, we can look at stuff like the very high defense and magic defense in comparison to other enemies, and low HP. Perhaps we could also talk about that comparison. Have you ever noticed, by the way, if you played this game, have you ever noticed that the Glob has like 500 HP and just 4 defense, and the Robo is like way less HP but much higher defense, and stuff like the Bosch is in the middle ground of it, 8 defense and like around 200 health points, and the chair also is close to the Bosch. The Toton is a bit less of a fair comparison because there were only 2 Totons, right? Both the chair, the Glob, the Robo, and the Bosch, all of them are 3 entities we fight against. But anyway, there's the glitch there. So, what else first to consider for the interpretation? Yeah, all that kind of stuff. Also, elemental weakness if we want, and so on and so forth. The drops, all of that helps. So, well, that said, let's begin with the basics. So, I'm gonna interpret that this is that the idea was this for to be an enemy from Epic Battle Fantasy 5. Easy part, right? So, we're gonna say that. I could say an enemy or a boss. I'm just gonna say a boss, honestly. Oh, sorry, an enemy. I'm just gonna say an enemy. Could say a boss, but I'm gonna just say just an enemy. Why an enemy instead of a boss? Because of its size. Because of sorry. I'm taking context into consideration. I guess you could say it's a boss. We're gonna be a little bit more specific if we say it's a boss. Because all bosses are enemies, not all enemies are bosses. Sure, let's go more specific. I think that makes for a better critique to be more specific. Since we can, I think it's reasonable for us. So let's call this, the idea was this to be a boss, not just an enemy, a boss for Epic Battle Fantasy 5, okay? What else? I'm gonna also interpret stuff like Robo, description, 128 megabytes of RAM, machine, also the drops, steel plate, copper pipe, plastic, metal gear, processor, stuff like elemental weakness, thunder and water that could possibly short. And I'm gonna interpret that this was meant to be some sort of robot or machine, because electricity could maybe cause a short circuit that hinders the functionalities of a machine or robot, I guess. Water similarly can also water can cause short circuits. I guess the electricity can cause also stuff like overcharge, perhaps, I don't know. And bomb, I would say we would have to get a little bit more creative. Maybe the idea is that it's some sort of concussive impact, and that would have it would be, what's the proper terminology? I'm thinking of physics here. It's not gonna be as, in Portuguese it would be amortecido. Cushion, kind of cushion, because if it's flash, if it's something more biological, maybe there's more elasticity cushion, that's what I was thinking of, wanting to say. So if it's something more biological, maybe the elasticity of the material makes a concussive damage from an explosion less damaging. But if it's something with very little elasticity, like say metal, then perhaps the concussive impact of an explosion damages the structure of a object or something, a lot. So although that's kind of a whole logic path that we got into, right? But at least we have some argument to justify, to correlate this with this idea for robot, and that's what I'm going for here. Although honestly, don't get me wrong, explosions hurt no matter if you're made out of metal or flesh, so I'll take this whole logic path that I went through with a grain of salt. But anyway, all about elasticity and cushioning impact and stuff. I'm not a physicist, so if I got something wrong somewhere, please forgive me. But anyway, all that to say that my second idea interpreted for the vision was for this to be a robot or machine. Well, all of that just for this thing to help. We didn't need it, but whatever. And we could even say stuff like the immunity to bio and to wind, so it's like stable. Also to fire and ice, temperature. Although that's also subjective because you can't fire metal, for example, But if it's so on the elemental resistances and weakness, things can get very subjective, I would believe. But on stuff like the name, the description, the drops, maybe it's a safer bet. Anyway, what else other than a boss for Epic Battle Fantasy V and a robot or machine? We have some interesting stuff on the little description of the enemy. Just say that this machine is incredibly accurate and always lands critical hits. Oops, give me a second. Some dogs were making noise outside, so I closed the window a bit. Anyway, so yeah, there is this stuff that this machine is incredibly accurate and always lands critical hits. So can we, because that's not exactly something that all machines, have as traits of them, right, or robots. So in game that translates to being a strong enemy against no legs, right, which is recognizable for its high evade. Oops, I clicked outside the game. So no legs has the highest evade of all the player characters and the lowest health. And so the ROBO having very high accuracy game design wise makes no legs being weak to the ROBO. What else? There's also the idea of always landing critical hits, which is again game design wise for this game I see it as a difficult something difficult to deal with, defensively, something difficult to defend against, because there is ways to defend against it, but they're basically with the Brave stats effect, which is more tied here. Temper gives them the Brave. No, I don't. Not gonna have the description of the Brave stats effect, I guess. But anyway, the Brave stats effect increases chance of doing critical hits and makes you immune to critical hits. But it's mostly tied to offensive skills. For example, the Temper, which buffs your attack, and only of one player at a time, and it even has a cooldown. Compare that to Protect, which buffs the defense of everybody, even people on backup. We have like stuff like Protect and Barrier and Reflex, all of those hit everybody defensively. Also Reflex has this utility of curing Shroud stats effect. But anyway, there's another equipment, there's another way to apply Brave to everybody, which is with the Ragnarok, but that's a limit break, which takes a lot of resources. And so you want to use it on special occasions. I guess the Ragnarok, we kind of have an argument for the Ragnarok, because this is a boss. So it's kind of hard for you to keep applying Temper for everybody, because you can only apply it to one person at a time on the last 3 turns. Also, the Brave on the last 3 turns, right? The Protect, for example, right now this lasts 11 turns. Technically, it gets being decreased, but you get a defensive buff for 11 turns. This one is like 3 turns necessarily, and only one one per layer at a time, so way harder for you to apply it defensively. So that would, the alternative would be Ragnarok, which is all about, Ragnarok is a limit break, so you know you're probably gonna use it like once, at most twice per battle against a boss, probably. And it gives buff. It gives Brave to everybody, but only for 5 turns. So you would have to kind of kill the Robo fast. There are also summons that can apply Brave. Do I have any here? Here, barbecue. Gives Brave, but the deal with summons is, again, it's a special resource because you can't restock summon points usually in battle. They're usually restocked by killing enemies. So again, they're more of a, you don't want to use it willy-nilly, so it has to be kind of like against a boss. Again, kind of works. So we have, does any of that help with our interpretation? That's what we should be getting at, though. And again, I don't want to get too much into game design, right? That whole disclaimer was for that. So yeah, like game design wise, there seems to be this idea that this boss should be, you have a lot of encouragements to deal with this boss in a fast way. That's why I even, when I was fighting it today on stream, I went for the OTK strategy, 1 turn kill strategy with the Viking Monolith. And technically it wasn't in 1 turn, but you know, that's just because I spent a little bit more turns to capture the Robo. Probably we would have done it in 1 turn if we just wanted to destroy all of them without capturing it for summons. To have the sum of it. Summon of it. Where are you, Robo? Name, Rochelle. I have no idea where the Robo is. Ah, here it is. Robo, yeah. So anyway. Okay, so we have all. Think on the game design. We have all these incentives to like deal with this in a quick manner. Very hard to be a defensive battle. That's all fine, but let's see. So with all this focus on crits and whatnot, and there is also the idea of being strong against no lags. Does that say anything to us? Because it has high accuracy. Well, from my humble interpretation of design, no lags and high evade. The mechanic of evade is about 2 things. One of them is about, mainly, there could be others, but to me as I see it, one of those ideas is to be like, have a buffer build, because throughout the battle you are often gonna come in, apply a buff and apply buffs, and if you're just a buffer, you can just apply your buff and then get out. And so I think the evade works well for that, because what's up with evade? Evade is a stat that's all about luck. If no lags has very low health and very high evade, then that means that probably on the first hit that goes at no lags is probably safe, you know. No lags is probably going to survive it. But over time, if this was a long battle, by design, by my interpretation of the design, the idea is that eventually they are gonna just want insta-kill no lags, you know, when you least expect. So that would mean that you want to use a character with high evade like sparsely. You want to use it to show up a little bit. So that's one way I see it, for you to be like a buffer. So you show up, buff everybody, and then get out, and then like, I don't know, 5 turns later, for example, because in this game we have the stronger defensive buffs like Protect and Barrier. They both have 5 turn cooldown, so that would be the idea. Also, I don't think it's a coincidence that no lags can use both Protect and Barrier and Reflects, and later on there's gonna be that buff that buffs one person with both physical and magical resistance and whatnot. Anyway, no lags can also learn Fearless Blessing. I think it is way later down the line in the game, which is another buffing skill. In any case, so yeah, that's how I interpret the design of no legs. By the way, feel free, don't think that you should follow design or anything like that. Feel free to do whatever you want, because as you can see, I'm saying that, but I have a barrier for Natalie and protect for Matt, even though supposedly I'm arguing that no legs design is all about buffing, a part of it, but you know, having a design tied to that by far should not constrain player choices. Don't worry about that. It's more about, I think, helping the designer make choices, possibly. Anyway, wow, off this for the interpretation. Come on, let's just finish this already. Okay, so yeah, buffing. So I think high evade. One situation is about buffing. The other situation is about as I call the 5-turn kill strategy, which would be something like Ragnarok. Because if you're gonna kill the enemy in 5 turns, then maybe the evade is just good enough. You know, you don't need to worry about anything else. Also work well with like limit breaks like the Genesis, which give auto revive for 5 turns. So if something goes wrong in one of these 5 turns, you have the fail safe, let's say, the backup plan. Which should happen, it might happen just once. If it might happen, since we're dealing with luck here in evade, but if it happens, it should roughly happen just once, right? If it's like 5 turns and you have high evade. And what else? Yeah, knowing about the game design and the game strats and stuff help you do art critiques. Did you know that? Anyway, at least, especially looking at the design, the more, you know, competitive strats for speedrunning and or multiplayer and whatnot, less so I would say, but in any case. Okay, so yeah. So this is the 2 ideas that I see for the design of this game that evade is important for. Either you focus on buffs or you focus on killing the enemy on 5 turns, which would kind of be going in the opposite direction than what I was saying of using the Ragnarok to be resistant to the crits. That would be a problem unless we had an alternative, which is the 1-turn kill. Which shouldn't be about no lags, because if you're killing the enemy in 1 turn, then you never took any hits, and so your evade was kind of useless, you know. If you're curious, I believe Lance's design is more tied to the 1-turn kill strategy, that's why I like to buff the Lance's limit breaks, which help a lot in those cases. But anyway, okay, so all of that, we talked a lot about design and strategy. So all of that to say that this boss apparently has some incentives to want to kill it fast, either with the 5-turn kill strategy or 1-turn kill, because of the deal of the crits. And also, but at the same time, it rewards you for a more... It kind of punishes you for trying the 5-turn kill or a long-term strategy, right? Because buffs, if you are buffing, you are either going for a long-term, something slow and steady, normal, let's say, or a 5-turn kill strategy, which also is the other way where evade is meaningful, as I interpret. So anyway, we have like all these incentives to deal with this boss with an OTK most strongly, or second to that 5-turn kill if you want with the Ragnarok. But the point is just don't go slow and steady against the robot. So all of that to say that, and which also ties well, I would say, with the design of the bomb element, which many bomb skills are about high cooldown and high damage in a short, in 1 turn. For example, Lance's skills, big bomb and motherful bombs. In any case, so let's add a vision, right? Let's add a vision to the interpretation, since we've gone through all of this design discussion for this specific part here. So yeah, I'm gonna be interpreting that the idea was for this boss to encourage. You're not forced, but to encourage a one turn kill strategy, encourage a burst strategy to deal with it. I'm gonna add that for the creative visual. So let's leave it at that, honestly. We could even get into other stuff, but this is getting a bit longer than I was calculating for the critique today. So I think 3 ideas for the visual is okay, honestly. So there are 3 ideas interpreted for the creative visual here. Are 1 to be a boss for Epic Battle Fantasy 5, 2 to be a robot or machine, and 3 to be an enemy that the player is encouraged to deal with a very fast strategy, with a burst of damage strategy, something like that. The faster the better, you know. You can also try for a 5-turn kill strategy, but in any case. So yeah, by the way, bosses are not the only ones who have that kind of stuff. Some enemies also, I think, encourage that, if you're curious, this sort of bursty strategy. I could mention, for example, the mirrors, that if you burst them, they're like small, normal dudes, right? But if you burst them with a strong enough damage, even if you don't kill them, you break the mirror and then half their skills are gone. We have stuff like where are they? The squids. Oh, here, the squid. We have stuff like the squids. Similarly, I think it even says, yeah, a strong hit will disarm it. Again, this is a stronger enemy, but not a boss. And if you burst it, you disarm it. Literally, you cut off its arms, and then its damage potential and skills is severely hindered. So you know, that wouldn't be any surprise for the game design of this game, this sort of bursty strategy. And so, yeah. So that's it for the creative vision. Wow, I got very deep into design this time. At least my views on the design of this game. So, let's move on to the judgment step, shall we? So, on this judgment step now, I'm gonna talk about the principles of art. For this critique, I'm gonna be considering 6. Movement, unity, contrast, emphasis, balance, and proportion. And let's compare those to the creative vision. The principles are basically referred to how the author used the elements. We mentioned the elements, where they are, what they were, made an analysis of them. Now we're gonna talk about how they were used. And so yeah, so let's begin. Movements, which it's not about animations, it's about the artwork possibly moving your eyes around in some sort of way or direction. So let's see here. For movement, I don't see much of it. It's kind of a very compact creature, right? For the visuals, like the only parts of it where I see it's kind of on these things that I mentioned before are being some sort of arms. So that's it, I would say. Does any of that help convey? Is that tied to a boss for Epic Battle Fantasy 5? So I think it's worth mentioning that the principle of movement here is being conveyed mostly to their shapes. These square shapes, which is pretty noticeable for the aesthetics of it, right? Because this is like pixel art basically. And on Epic Battle Fantasy 5 we have the arcade bosses, as we call them. This set of enemies that we fight on arcade machines, and they all have this like 8-bit aesthetics. So basically, if you saw this somewhere else, because of the 8-bit aesthetics, you would be able to recognize it possibly as a boss for Epic Battle Fantasy 5, one of the arcade bosses, you know. That's one way that I see that has been conveyed. If you played, you have to play Epic Battle Fantasy 5, but still, it's a part of the design of it. It's even on there's like an achievement to beat all the arcade bosses. It's a thing on this game. And so, yeah, it's kind of a small part of it, right? It's just saying that the arms are using that pixel art aesthetic to convey that. But to me, I would say it's strong enough. So I will say it's helping on the vision. It's like I guess I can't ignore that it's basically some rectangles there, the shapes there. The element of color, I would also say it's helping because of the light shade of, because that's the element of color there. It's the lighter gray in the middle of the darker gray, which is making out for the arm, right? Anyway, what about being a robot? Just having an arm, I don't think it's enough. I suppose it's a straight arm, but not all robots need to have a straight, very like design with straight lines and flat surfaces, you know, especially nowadays. So I wouldn't say that some sort of straight arm is enough to convey that this is a robot or machine. And finally, what about the idea of something that for the player to hopefully deal with very fast and for that strategy to be meaningful? For the arms, I don't think that's it. You know, to be fair, one of the attacks that the robot does is the arms stretching in the battle of it, but that's not the only attack. Another one that he likes starts flying and then he falls on you. He or she, I don't know. It falls on you, and all of those I believe have high accuracy and land critical hits, which was the main mechanics, main game design aspects for this part of the interpretation, right? So I wouldn't say the arms by itself are enough. Even if there was not the movement, the attack that the robot flies and jumps and falls on you. Even if there was the one that he stretches his arm, I don't see that communicating accuracy or critical hits. You know, I don't know. Let's go for the principle of unity. How about different parts of the artwork, partly working together in some way or another? We should also talk about variety, which is basically the opposite. So, altogether, all of those can help convey the vision, can help work out for the vision. So first things first, shades of grey. That's probably the strongest unity I see here. One of those, at least, because there is like this whole repetition, continuity of grey throughout the whole body of the robot, basically. Just the hands, and as I said, the details, the eyes and the teeth, I guess. So a lot of grey here. Also, have stuff like, we could say repetition on the arms. You know, there's two of them that also helps. Symmetry on the face, those are also example of unity. We could talk about variety, there being like this skull on the face, that's like very unique. There's like one skull there and it has its unique shapes here mostly. Forms not so much, right? What else? If we're gonna talk about also unity, the squares and the shapes. The quadrangular shapes are also so strong in unity here. So strong. That's even probably stronger than, let's say, than the color. Because everything's quadrangular here. That's the pixel art aesthetic. So strong unit there. So all of that, does any of that help with the idea of this being a boss for Battle Fantasy V? Again, we have the arcade bosses with the pixel art aesthetic. So if there is the unity of this, the important part of the unity with the pixel art aesthetic is that there is no curvature whatsoever. So it's full pixel art, you know, because you could mix up, why not, if you want, you know, you could have some part of your artwork with a bunch of quadrangular, bunch of pixels, and the other one some more fluid, smooth lines. You do what you want, you know. But in here there is unity there, and I think that easily helps convey that this is one of the arcade bosses, because all of the arcade bosses have this pixel art style with everything's quadrangular and for the shapes at the very core of it, you know, because there's like conveyed shapes. We talk about those sorry, there's conveyed forms. I don't know if I talked about something like conveyed shapes. For forms, we kind of have to try to make out always, because this is something printed on a screen, right? So we have to use our eyes here, not in our mind, not just our eyes. But for shapes, in this case, I think we can just say that's either way. That's all helping with that part of the vision as I see it. Identifiable as an arcade boss from Epic Battle Fantasy V. Mind you, this is the case just for 5. 4, 3, 2, and 1 wouldn't be the case, and if there ever is a 6 and there are no arcade bosses on Epic Battle Fantasy VI, you know that's also gonna be another issue. But anyway, what about the idea of something of a robot or a machine? So not only do I see the bunch of quadrangular and pixelated stuff, you could maybe tie it to that, you know, maybe. But more importantly than that, I see is the gray, the unity, because of the gray, of the proximity and repetition and continuity of the gray, especially continuity and repetition of the shades of gray, because machines are often made out of metal, and iron, for example, steel, and metal often have like iron often is gray, you know, especially if you don't paint it or anything. You know that. Probably if you live in a urban environment, for example. So if we can look at, for example, machines used in the industry and stuff like that. Although even that, when it comes to that, the aesthetics can change, I suppose. But in any case, iron is a very versatile material, right? We have used it for a lot of stuff. And among them, I believe the first machines and robots even today, I think it's an easy way to convey that this is a robot or a machine. The gray of that conveys the materials, that conveys it's iron or some other metal. So yeah. And finally, what about the whole schmuck of an enemy that you should deal with as fast as possible with some sort of burst of damage, preferably? I guess that makes sense to me if we consider that specific argument of the bomb with the conclusive damage and stuff. Again, I'm not a physicist. I'm guessing that something softer has more elasticity, and so it absorbs damage more. Absorbs an impact more easily than metal. I'm guessing here from my limited understanding of things. And also, you know, if it's something biological, the heat of the explosion is also something to consider, for example, I would guess. But in any case, I guess I will consider that. I will accept that as a valid argument. Also because specifically on this game, and the whole logic is that, so the grays conveying this is made out of metal or stuff, and metal things are susceptible to damage through explosions and, you know, concussive impact of an explosion. But I also consider this because of the fact that a number of robot enemies on this game are weak to bomb, so that's kind of a thing. We have the metal, I don't know, okay, what else? Let's see the stingfish. So this one is weak to bomb, this one is weak to bomb, this one absorbs bomb, this one is weak to 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 bomb, all of them machines. So we have like this one is an exception, but the rest we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 machines that are weak to bomb and 1 that absorbs bomb. What else? This kind of looks like a machine, but this is actually a animated armor. What else for machines that are in this game? We have this boss, weak to bomb. We have the Harpoon turret, weak to bomb. Canon turret, weak to bomb. Laser turret, weak to bomb. What else? Valhalla, it's kind of a different version of the Valkyrie, but still. Again, weak to bomb. Big Harpoon, weak to bomb. Shockwave Bomb, Witch Bomb, and even stuff like the Gun Cat, which is apparently some sort of robot machine cat thing. Again, Witch Bomb. So that seems to be a pattern. There are, as I said, exceptions. The Grey Pix is probably not a good deal. There are exceptions, as you can see. The Metal Idol is made out of metal, but it's not Witch Bomb. And there is the Goldfish specifically, which absorbs bomb. But considering the sheer amount of different enemies with this property, which by the way is not even from just Epic Battle Fantasy V, there's a similar thing from Epic Battle Fantasy IV and I think 3. I think bomb element was introduced in 3. Well, right? Not sure now. Don't remember which installment was it introduced, but yeah, we have that. So we have this kind of correlation in this game of robots and metal being Witch Bomb. I have this logic, this argument of this idea of some concussive impact damaging more something with less elasticity, and I'm guessing that goes for metal in robots and stuff. And so I thought that because of all of that, I'm considering that this is helping the visual. That being a bunch of grays, shades of grey, convey this is made out of metal, and this helps convey that this is Witch Bomb. And because of the design of bomb attacks, that helps convey that you should try to destroy this as fast as you can. That's gonna be my logic here. Also, a little side note tied to this whole argument. There's the idea of low HP and high defense, right? If you are on a OTK strategy specifically, one of the things you do is, as you have seen on my stream, if you have watched, one thing you do is use a skill like Enfeeble to debuff the stats of an enemy, defensive ones. And not only that matters way more for the faster your strategy is, because if you're going slow instead, it matters less that if you're decreasing the defense of the enemy, it matters less for a long-term strategy because you don't need to hurry, you know. So usually for those strategies it fits more to debuff the attack of the enemy with weak and tired. And vice versa, if you're going for an OTK strategy, it's a big deal to debuff the defenses. And all that to say that if this enemy has very low HP but very high defense, if you debuff their defense and you break its strength, so that also I think it ties well with encouraging you to go for an OTK or just a fast strategy against this boss enemy. So either way, that also ties well with the vision and everything that's communicated here. So that's Unity. Let's talk about contrast, about the differences in the artwork. The strongest one is probably in the colors, right? Because especially in the red in contrast with the shades of grey, I think it's pretty noticeable, the contrast there. Mostly it, perhaps some also on the shapes and forms of the hands of the ROBO, which had very unique shapes and forms. But in any case, does any of that help convey that this is an enemy from Epic Battle Fantasy V? Specifically a boss from Epic Battle Fantasy V? I don't think so. There is the fact that the red is, for example, in the eyes and the teeth, and so makes this look a bit scary. And a number of... okay, I was thinking that a number of bosses are scary looking, a number of normal enemies are cute looking, but that's not no rule, because you have stuff like the Bosch, it's kinda cute. You have stuff like... I guess the Papalotta is kinda cute and it's a boss. And about being menacing, we have the Leafy Chomper is pretty menacing, I would say. The dragons, who are not bosses, are pretty menacing, you know, so I guess it's not a rule. So I don't think I see it helping convey that this is a boss from Battle Fantasy V. Through contrast, whatever. What about, what was it? Conveying that this is a robot or machine. I suppose the shapes and the forms of the hands and the color could kinda help convey that this is a sort of magnet. And okay, so it would like this is some sort of enemy that has some sort of magnet hands, right? Which is interesting. Could tie to electromagnetism and the inner workings of a robot or machine. No, but, okay, so I guess it's helping because of physics principles and how often you're gonna have electromagnetism being a part of machines. You can think like electric engines and other stuff. So maybe for this enemy to hold magnets, I think could help convey that this is a robot. Very interesting. And finally, what about conveying that you should try to fight with this as fast as possible to encourage that kind of strategy? Again, by design, because I don't know if the speedrunning strat for this boss does it like that, but anyway. So, don't even know exactly how developed are the speedrun strats for this game nowadays. I wanted to do a speedrun on this, but I kinda left that on the back burner, still want to finish it someday. In any case. Yeah, so contrast helping convey that for you to try to deal with this enemy as fast as possible. I don't think so. It's like it has the magnets, okay, but I don't think there's like any mechanics that ties to magnets and like the magnetic pulls and whatnot. There's like a weather that's like low gravity, but that's another different stuff, like, right? It's not about magnets or anything. I don't think I remember any other. I don't think I remember any sort of thing about magnetism in this game, so I will say that's not helping convey that part of the vision. Okay, what about emphasis? So let's see, for the principle of emphasis, let me reset my eyes a bit. Also end of stream time. Yeah, for some reason today's interpretation took so long. Anyway. So, emphasis here. Yeah, the skull. The skull is definitely the emphasis here for me. With help from a little bit help from the contrast, honestly, also, you know, because the red teeth and eyes make it look menacing. But the skull with its unique shapes, and also even a bit of the form of the ears, I guess, all of that to me easily, that's where the emphasis is. And of that help convey that this is an enemy from Battle Fantasy V. Again, the skull is pretty menacing, but and I guess we could say that if we're looking at the skull, you can notice so easily that everything is pixel-like. No, maybe that whole argument of the pixel art and the arcade boss is gonna go for all principles. I didn't say for the previous one, but maybe we could also. So yeah, so I think the face is just helping convey that this is an arcade boss because everything is pixel art. But other than that, I think not. Again, there are menacing enemies, but there are cute enemies. There are cute bosses and menacing bosses. There are cute enemies and menacing enemies. So yeah, but it's helping convey that this is an arcade boss. What about conveying that this is a robot or machine? The skull? No, I don't think it's helping. In this game we have a number of skull masks and stuff. We have stuff like the Charlotte, we have the Death Mask, and they are not about robots, you know, so... just because there is a skull doesn't mean it could be something else, you know. Are skulls related to robots or machines in the first place? No, I guess I should have gone for that. Should have said that. So yeah, I don't see just the skull helping. I would with conveying that is a robot or machine. And finally, what about conveying the idea of encouraging the player to deal with this as fast as possible, that kind of strategy, think on the game design and stuff. Emphasis on the skull doesn't help to me. Yeah, just doesn't. Okay, so let's move on. That was it for emphasis. Let's get into balance. So, is there any sort of state of equilibrium or tension or lack of those in here? Let's see. No, I think everything's just balanced in general, and I don't think I see any tension. So, okay, as usual, I guess. Artists depends a lot on the art for me to see. It's not like rare by any means, but depending on the art, you're not gonna see it easily. For games, I think usually there's less of it, it seems to me. At least the ones I have been playing. Anyway, so, but just in case, could that help in any way convey this an enemy from a boss, not just an enemy boss from Epic Battle Fantasy 5? Just being in general visually balanced, no sorts of tension or lack of equilibrium. I wonder if the magnet hands could be called a source of lack of equilibrium. They are visual balance and equilibrium. They are a bit like protruding and a bit, you know, shifting a bit the center of mass, I would say. Maybe those. But I don't think that helps convey that this is an enemy from Epic Battle Fantasy 5, just this magnet hands thing. Again, I said the argument of the magnets for helping convey this is a robot, so I guess that goes here. By the way, to me the important part of the hands, the magnet hands looking like there is some sort of thing, like some lack of equilibrium there, is because of the arms, basically. It's because of the protrusion of the arms and something that goes forward. If it was a bit tied in the robo, like attached directly to the robo, don't think I would see the principle of balance here. But anyway, but since it's kind of protruding going out of the robo, I think that's a little bit of lack of equilibrium, and so yeah, anyway. Because of the magnet hands, I think that's how, again, I think that's how helping convey that it's a robot or machine. And but by the same argument, if it's just that for balance, I don't see that helping convey that you should deal with this in a fast strategy. And finally, the last principle, proportion, so the sizes of things. So if I'm gonna roughly place things into scales here, I would say like the whole body, in general, of the robo has the biggest scale. After that the face, the skull, and after that the magnet hands and the feet. Those are roughly how I would group things in their scales. And I don't think I see anything with some very noticeable dimension to be worth saying by itself, you know, setting aside. So okay, so this layout of scales, does any of that help convey this is an enemy from Epic Battle Fantasy 5? No, it's kind of whatever, right? It has a body, has a skull face, and it has like magnet hands and feet, whatever. I don't think there is any sort of pattern in the dimensions and proportions of enemies for Epic Battle Fantasy 5. They're usually pretty varied in their shapes and forms, I guess, in their proportions. What about helping convey this is a robot? Again, just having a bigger size than your face and a bigger face than your hands and feet. Don't think so. Don't think helps. And also this time the magnet hands are in the same scale as the tiny feet, but I don't see the tiny feet as helping convey that this is a robot necessarily. If they had a different color, if they were like little wheels maybe, but since they just look like tiny feet to me, and so they're kind of sharing the scale with the hands, I don't think that's by the proportions helping convey that this is a robot. If there were no feet, if it was just the magnet hands on the smallest proportion, I would say so, because I think like having just one kind of thing on one specific size, or a set of things with something similar, you know, on one specific size, I see that as helping convey the vision usually, but that's not the case here. And finally, does the proportions help with conveying the idea of encouraging you to fight fast against this boss? Don't think so, right? Just having a body bigger than your head, than your face, and a face bigger than your magnet hands and small feet thing. I don't think I see any way that helps convey the visual. So yeah, okay, so I guess that's it for the Judgement step. So this was interesting. Basically a lot of stuff made us look at the pixel art and realize this is one of the arcade bosses from Epic Battle Fantasy V. Some of stuff like the magnet hands and the grey metal skin, let's say, helps us convey it's a robot or some sort of machine. And that specifically I think was the only thing that helped convey that maybe you should try to blow this up in one turn or something, right? Because the rest was kind of whatever. So every idea, every part of the vision was accomplished in some way through at least one of the principles. So my only conclusion is that this is a successful work of art. Congrats, Matt Rosaski. I think you did it. By the way, the whole part of the strategy of destroying this quick and stuff, it's kind of convoluted, right? I may have made some mistakes somewhere, but in case I didn't, the logic stands, and I think that we have that working in favor of the art here. So yay! That was it for today. Join me next week for more! I play and I critique the art of Epic Battle Fantasy V on Fridays, and I do that for Team Fortress 2 on the other days of the week. So join me on Monday, or join me on Friday, or join me whenever you want. See you next time, same time and place. Bye!